So many startups like running away with money.
Absolutely humbling experience.
It's super important to stand by your team at all times. If you want to be an entrepreneur, don't wait.
Pivoting is hard.
Starting a startup, you have to pivot.
So it does come with a little humility, and I think you get that on the way.
Your goals kind of were aligning.
We have the ability to sit down, talk each other out of it, and say, okay, this is what customers want, this is what we need to build.
One check doesn't cut it.
One check doesn't cut it.
I don't think a founder ever fails.
Customers are complaining about bugs, but I at least know that people are using the product, right? If they weren't using it, they wouldn't be complaining.
I think just having faith in your child is important, right? I think culture has a trickle-down effect.
That if there weren't enough crazy people doing it, the world wouldn't be where it is today.
There are weeks when I'm not performing my best. I'm like, I need to work for my team.
People are looking at the glamour. They don't actually desire to build something.
It's important to feel every emotion. Feel it, live it. Your support system will believe in you on the days that you don't believe in yourself.
We end up spending more time with each other as founders than we do with our partners. Somewhere, somehow, everyone has a boss. It always looks easier from the outside, but in reality, it isn't. It may seem like we make our own timelines, but we aren't.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Decoding Quirks. I'm your host, Aditi, and today is a first. A first where I have boys on my podcast, a first where I have two guests on my podcast, and a first where it's going to be longer than an hour, and a first where I'm going to give you their names and then the intro. So let's start with the first guest, Anuj Chhabria. He started working at the age of 16. He was so curious about the entrepreneur life and the tech life that he started an agency so young. He then dabbled into other aspects of life. He also did theatre production and he's completed all his 3 years of CFA. So, the Mumbaikars, you know how tough that is. Then he realized that he actually really likes the tech life. Today, he is the co founder of Classcard, UAE. And now, my second guest, Suraj Talreja. Suraj is also a Bombay boy, also really smart. And when I say smart, he's completed his CA. He completed his CA, but he didn't practice. He does believe that CA has really taught him the critical thinking he needs today. He started a company at the age of 2021, Soundtrot, while he was studying. That company taught him how curious he was about internet-based businesses. He never looked back. He worked for many startups, including Zomato. And today, he's sitting with us as the co-founder of Classcard UAE. So let's welcome this dynamic duo. And also, we're going to find out more about the entrepreneur life in Dubai and the tea behind entrepreneurship. So welcome, Suraj. Welcome, Anuj.
Hey, Aditi.
Hey.
Hi, Aditi. Pleasure to be
Excited?
here. Absolutely.
Nice. Okay. Before we get into the actual, what is the entrepreneur life? What happens? Let's just give them a background of who are y'all? What do y'all do?
Sure. So I think you did a good job at giving an intro. I think tech has always been one of my most passionate topics. And I've always been inclined towards building software, building product that people use on a day-to-day basis. That's been one of my most important journeys of life. Of course, it comes with its ups and downs, but that's just the entrepreneur life. So yeah, I'm excited to dig deeper and talk more about it today.
Awesome, Suraj.
And like you mentioned, I'm from Bombay too.
Love some Bombay.
And the hustle culture just gets to you. You're young, you're trying out different things. And I think one of the things that kept me up at night is why isn't anyone building travel packages around music festivals? And I know this kind of ties back to your journey as well into the mental health space. So that's what I dabbled in. I did that while I was studying for my CA. Absolutely humbling experience, like servicing people at the hotel, making sure they're all well, and doing this in an internet-based way. So they were booking online. It was amazing to see transactions over 1 lakh going through online back then. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. This is working. And one thing led to the other. I moved to Dubai, joined Zomato, helped them with their online ordering business. And and then we stumbled onto a Classcard. We just wanted to be in a space that we were that we felt was meaningful. We felt give back to the society as well, and education and sports and technology was a good intersection of all of it. And yeah, here we are.
Okay, so I love the whole internet aspect of it because I was just someone who was a user. I didn't know there was a behind the scenes, let's be honest. It's nice that y'all are curious about what is happening behind the scenes. So I'm going to get into that. But what is Classcard?
So Classcard is a simple software that is used by many after school businesses. So think of like football providers, tennis providers, chess classes. They use it as almost like an operating system to manage their student CRM, like the relationship management with parents. And there's an online booking aspect of it. So parents can like book classes online, which surely automates a lot of the manual work that would happen traditionally. And we compare that with Shopify to create a simple parallel. So we kind of tell them like you're getting like a Salesforce come Shopify and Classcard for a small business at a fraction of the cost that you pay for an enterprise software.
Nice. Why did you all choose this specific thing? Because, okay, for me, my first journey was travel. I feel like I don't need to give an explanation for that. We all are constantly traveling. My second journey was mental health. There were problems in mental health, and I realized people were not solving it. And that's why I went into problem solving around mental health. Why class card? Like, why would you do something about sports related? Like, I all like sports junkies.
So interestingly, how ClassCard actually came about to be was to actually have data-driven insights for students. What we realized is when we started talking to class providers is they don't have data right now, right? So it all started with giving them a platform where they could actually have everything centralized in one location rather than scrambling between Excel sheets, paper, pen, etc. And we started building from the ground up. Of course, that went about to how do we drive revenue for them, right? And that's how we also came up with the entire concept of booking pages. So frictionless booking for bookings for parents, they can just book for the entire term in one go. That's exactly how ClassCard came about.
So it started with like wanting data and then giving them a service.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we could say like it's funny. I was with a client the other day, and they were like, "Let's finally use ClassCard for report
Yeah.
cards."
Okay, yes, people should know this. Can you like,
So the
yeah.
backstory is like there were multiple pivots on the journey, like you'd imagine. And we started off as a brand called Report Card. So we were very enamored by the whole Fitbit culture when we saw people tracking their physical health on a real-time basis. And we were like, why is this not there in education? Why do we have to wait for like end of term report cards? And when you started speaking to people, we realized like it's not a dire consequence. People don't want to pay money for it, but smaller businesses wanted to be more organized. They wanted to have data in a central place and just provide better service. So we built all these features and functionalities, and and we built a whole like I'd say a product that somehow enables this capability, but we still don't have it. Funnily speaking, so I do believe like we say we pivot. It's like a euphemism for like failure, but I think I think that's learning. Like you just like have to adapt and listen to the market and look for opportunities. There's a plenty of opportunities. You just have to listen well, and you'll find something to solve.
I mean, getting into the entrepreneurial journey, getting into starting a startup, you have to pivot. There are going to be many, many times that you pivot. At times, you won't even realize that you're pivoting, but in fact, you are. And it's kind of pivotal. So, pivoting is not about, it's not about failure. It's not about reinventing. It's just about going in the direction. It's about building what your customers want, and it's about learning along the way.
But pivoting is hard also. It's like a hard pill to swallow. So is that like, is there fear? Like, is there self doubt in that aspect of like, you know what, I started this, I convinced people that it was one specific product and then I've changed. So is pivoting hard?
I mean, there's a lot of humility attached to it because obviously there's ego attached to your initial idea, and when you realize that it's not working as well as you hoped, you need to like keep your ego aside and say like this is gonna need some rethinking, and let's go back to the drawing board and build something that people are actually going to use. So it does come with a little humility, and I think you get that on the way. There's no escaping it.
I think also at times like these, you realize how important it is to have a good team, some good co-founders with you along the way. There are several times when I've had tremendous ego around a feature we built just because I put in all the effort into building it. Of course, even Suraj puts in the amount of effort into actually building the product and designing everything. But we have the ability to sit down, talk each other out of it, and say, okay, this is what customers want. This is what we need to build. And so yeah.
So, how important is the co founder? Like, how do you firstly forget the importance? How do you find a co founder?
Our case was I'd say a lot simpler compared to what a lot of other people would have to go through. Suraj and I worked on SoundTrot together. I helped him with some tech aspects of SoundTrot back then. So of course we enjoyed working together back then. And of course when Report Card back then came about, I was obviously the tech partner of choice for Suraj. Yeah,
That's how they all met.
yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, there is a serendipity angle to it, right? Like I met Anuj at like a event, very ambitious young kid, like say 16s, like having business cards in his hand, like contact me if you have a web dev work, and I was like, wow, this is initiative. Like I want to work with this guy, and
How old were you, if you don't mind me
I was
asking?
like 20 back then.
And he was 16.
Yeah.
Okay, lovely.
So I was like, let's just go in. I was struggling to find a good web partner, and I'd burnt my fingers with another agency. So I was like, let's give this guy a go. And I remember I would be at Anuj's house. I'd go to the house at like 10 p.m. at the night, and I would be there till like 2 a.m. Making small changes and fixes to the website, and come back home. And he would patiently sit next to me and be like, okay, let's do it together. Let's get this out of the way.
So, can I just say, like, your goals kind of were aligning in the ambition, the curiosity around tech? So, is that something that we need to
I
like
think
find in
Anuj
a.
comes with a very interesting perspective on tech. He's never intimidated by new tech, and that's awesome. Like, you want to discuss what's the latest, you want to try out new things, and as long as I think you have a team that enables that, that's amazing. So, I think that's what like we felt like a team, right? Like we are there for each other, and we're gonna like make sure we're gonna try these new things out together.
Nice. And we also know that there's a trio that's missing. So you'll have three co founders, from what I understand. So, how does it work? Where does the balance around these three co founders, like who does what? Who's responsible for what? Like, how does it work?
So, if you actually look at responsibilities, it's well defined. I look at tech, Suraj looks at product and marketing, Nitin looks at sales and customer success. But somewhere the lines get blurred. I think somewhere there are days where I'm doing customer support work as well because that's what it takes. And all of us are always debating product. I think what really works is the way you balance each other out. So there are times when Nitin has to talk Suraj and me out of things. There are times when I have to talk Nitin and Suraj out of things. There are times when Suraj is talking the two of us out of things. So, putting together our flaws and our positives, I think we come together really well as a team. And I think that's super important, right? Because there are times when I'm just being egoistic about something, and the other two are there to talk me down, to calm me down through it. And the one thing I've learned through this entire journey of entrepreneurship is that it's super important to stand by your team at all times, right? Everyone's going to screw up things at some point in time. That's just a part of the journey. The one thing that you have to do is be high on empathy and be there for your co-founders, for your team. And these people have come through, right? We've been working together for a long time, and we enjoy working together.
So, it's also to keep your ego aside.
Yeah, and egos are going to come in, right? It's normal. It's normal to have debates, arguments, fights. It's really how you deal with it after the fact, right? It's really about saying that, okay, you've taken a few minutes to calm down, and also after you work with each other for some time, you kind of realize you understand each other's demeanor. So that's why empathy is so important, right? Because let's say if I am going through a phase, or if I've gotten too heated in an argument, the other two know my demeanor, so they know to be relaxed in that situation, and then come back to me 1 hour or 2 hours later, and have an open conversation about it. So yeah.
And it's also like also not having a grudge, right? You can't hold a grudge against, oh, you did this then. I don't think any relationship works when you hold a grudge. So even my journey, as a mental health coach, I'm constantly telling people about relationships, right? Relationships is also when like two people get together because their end goal is the same, you know. But you could be taking a different route, and he or the other person can be taking a different route. Like one person can be emotional, one person can be technical. As long as you're going to the same place, that's okay, because you'll also kind of balance each other out. So does the relationship, like the love life relationship angle also play in co-founders? And I'm not saying that you're in love, but I'm just saying like how y'all balance each other out and having the similar goals. So does that
There's
work?
definitely an element of caring personally.
Hmm.
Like we care very, very personally for each other, and that goes beyond like obviously the office. So it enables us to like talk to each other more freely. And whenever there is a disagreement, like you would, or a conflict, like what you call, I think once that that caring or that personal affection is established, you're not being attacked. Like it's coming from a place wherein we want everyone to win.
That's amazing. But okay, what about if when it's not on conflicts? Like, how do you all work together? Like, how do you all empower each other?
I mean, just to answer the question about whether it is similar to a relationship or in your in your love life, we end up spending more time with each other as founders than we do with our partners. So I mean, yeah, if you look at the amount of time we are working together, you're sleeping for what 8 hours a day, you're working for like 10 hours a day, you're with each other for the longest amount of time. So I'd say a founder relationship is as good as being married.
Yeah, of course. You're spending that much time, that makes so much sense. And because, yeah, you'll have to like balance each other out and understand each other. And no one is higher than the other, is from what I understand. If you have a co founder, it's not one person is like on a higher pedestal and one person's on a lower pedestal. To maintain that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like,
Yeah, I think like in certain aspects of uh, competence, we would definitely look at each other as higher than the other, and that brings in an element of respect. So we do respect each other's like capabilities, and like Anuja said, it's come through. Like we've seen instances where we've outdone each other in certain aspects of business, and then those responsibilities were like divided as and when we kind of figured out what you're doing well at. So
so it's like you look at the other person as higher, but there's no hierarchy when it comes to co founders. Is that it?
yeah, I'd agree to that.
Yeah. Is there a hierarchy, do you think?
It's not a hierarchy, but you look at, first of all, you should always treat the opposite person as speaking sense, because obviously everyone's working towards the same goal, right? Everyone wants the company to do well, everyone wants to build great product, everyone wants to have more customers, more revenue, so on and so forth, right? Uh, I think the only element of hierarchy per se comes when we are discussing or debating a particular area, right? So if it's something to do with product, I'm going to tell Suraj, okay, I don't agree with you, but this is your call, right? Similarly, if it's got to do with anything on tech, Suraj is going to voice out and say, according to me, this is how we should do it, but it's your call, and that's where the respect comes in, right? Because we know that okay, Suraj's area of expertise is product, and there has to be some merit in it, right? On the flip side, it's also important to make the opposite person feel heard. So if I just shun Nitin out and say, okay, no, leave that to me, that's wrong on me as well.
Yeah. So being respectful in
Yeah.
validating their feelings, it's called in mental health. You are
Right.
validating their feelings. You're hearing them out. Shit, yeah, there's a lot of mental health in this.
I mean, in me, in my head, it's very simple. The framework. It's called disagree but commit.
Okay, do you put that in your personal life as well?
A lot of times, yeah.
Have you learned it from your personal life?
Not so much my personal. It's more professional.
Okay, talking about personal life, uh, how do you manage? How do you balance being an entrepreneur, being a founder, and your personal life?
I think over the years, we've realized that it's equally important to take care of your mental health and your personal life as well. Do what you like to do outside of work. If you don't, you're going to end up, feeling like you're missing out on something, and that's not a feeling you want to go back to work with. So we, of course, in the initial days, it was really really hustling, where we would spend days, nights, weekends, holidays, always working. And then over time, we kind of realized that, okay, we always hear of people burning out, and that's probably why they burn out. And then you need to take a really long break to get over it. Instead, just spend your weekends, take some downtime, and you probably will not face as much burnout.
But, like even your families or your partners, do they understand when you need to spend so much time? Or do you think that's a struggle, especially in this entrepreneurial life?
I mean, from whatever I know, at least I think we've been lucky enough to have partners that understand, our journey. Even our families, for that matter. My parents are very very supportive of my journey. So is my partner. Um, but there are always days where it's almost, you can see it on them. There is disappointment, uh, but sometimes you've just got to do what you've got to do, I guess. You have to pay bills at the end of the day, and not your own bills. Not your own bills. I mean, it's you've got to support the company. You've got to pay your team, and I mean, we've gone on this journey, right? We chose this path, and yeah.
How do you feel in the sense of, like, is it, how do you manage personal life and the support?
I mean, like there might be a lot of like a bunch of statistics talking about like how many startups fail, and according to me, and this is my little secret, I don't think a founder ever fails. Like no founder fails. They eventually make it. If you're putting your head down, you're putting an honest day of work. You're patiently persistent. You're never going to fail. You're going to figure it out. You're going to pivot. You're going to do things. You're going to make it in the end. So I also think now over time that the journey that you're on is equally important because, like, if you look at a marathon runner, when they finish the race, it's not like they're done for life. They're going to come back and they're going to work on their timing. So when we hit like certain milestones, we realize that what next? And that's when I think we kind of underplayed our ambitions. Like we could have shot for the stars, and like as we built, as reality hit us, we kept on like taming our ambition low and low, and like, and now it's like I did this. Let's try and achieve this in a faster time slot and more with more efficiency. So for me, it's taking those learnings and getting more efficient at what we're doing at the same time like enjoying the journey, which means that you have hobbies, you have a life outside of work, you have relationships you value, and you kind of get like it's a like a symbiotic relationship as well.
That's amazing. And is there, like, do you feel like, I know you said that a founder never fails, but is there ever a plateau? Have you all ever dealt with a plateau?
Several times, and yeah, persistence is key. Suraj is very right. I mean, there could have been several times where we would have just shut shop and said, okay, this is not working out, but we persisted. We built. One could say we failed, if that's how you define failure, but we reinvented the product multiple times. We did what it took, and I mean, we have a long journey. Honestly, I think we really haven't even scratched the surface. But you got to do what it takes, as I said earlier, right? You have to come back to work every morning. You have to be prepared to do what you need to do the next day. Um,
It's not easy,
it's not easy, no, it
but you
isn't.
also enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm doing it, right? And
It's
that's
the
why I chose to do
addiction.
it. Yeah, I mean, I always say that starting a startup is not about the idea as much as it is wanting to do something, wanting to go on that entrepreneurial journey, right? You will find any idea to build a business. And unfortunately, what we hear in the media is more about, only the success stories. And that also you hear only about the success stories where either the company is sexy, the founder is sexy, or they've raised a lot of money. But there are a bunch of startups, there are a bunch of companies, really successful companies that are not out there in the media, but are successful. The founders never really had anything to do with any of the ideas that they had or the company that they built, but it was just the grit, the the desire to be an entrepreneur, to build a company, to build something valuable that got them there.
Beautiful. Honestly, I've also heard this term that it's very easy to start a business, but it's really like, okay, once you start the business, you figure out, okay, what's coming in, what's going out, who's doing what. But to scale it is a whole other aspect. To sustain its lows is a whole other aspect. So, how do you all maintain that? Like, how do you all maintain the being founders, but managing a team while they're going through a low?
It's important to feel every emotion, like feel it, like live it, and that's a rich life, right? You can't just be happy all the time. And I think a good team doesn't want a happy job; they want to be challenged at work. And I'm constantly asking myself, is everyone challenged on the team? Not are they comfortable? Not do they feel happy? Nothing. Like are they challenged on the team? Yeah, and I think it's important to even ask for help. So on the bad days, like just ask for help. Like you have a problem, you go to a doctor. If you have a mental health issue, you go to a therapist. You're stuck in your business. Talk to a founder who's done it maybe 2 years before you. Reach out, ask for help. I think that's such an underrated skill founders should just imbibe in their day to day.
Does it happen though? Like, are people comfortable talking to each other? Like, are other founders happy to give you all advice, maybe the right word, or talk you all through it?
I think very much, because most founders go through what the other person has gone through. What you're going through now, somebody's already gone through it earlier. Someone somewhere has had difficulty in scaling. Someone somewhere had a high churn problem. Uh, Everyone's already done it, right? You're not going through something unique. So just reach out and ask for help always.
That's interesting. And is this, like, as I said, I spoke about the plateau earlier. Let's talk about a plateau in the journey. Where does it stop being a startup anymore? Where does the journey end for y'all? Or does the journey end for y'all? Like, does it become like, what do you do with the business after it becomes really big? What's the future
I
plan?
think that's when the realization kicks in, right? You're not in there for the fame, you're not in there for the money. There's a lot more intrinsic motivation to what you're doing and why you got onto the entrepreneurship journey. Like, once those things come and go, you kind of realize that why you're actually in it. And for us, I think, and maybe I'm speaking on behalf of everyone here, it's more like let's build value. Let's just put out something in the world that people use and enjoy using. And if you get paid for it and a lot of money, that's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is. When you said get paid, you mean get acquired.
Uh, or like the multiple different ways to get paid. So like if you have like high value customers, if you have, I think that part of the journey figures out itself. Like hopefully, I don't know, I'm not reached there, but
Okay,
yeah.
awesome. But is it scary?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and you've got to be scared. You have to feel the fear. Uh, because if you don't feel the fear, are you really building anything that's worth building then? Are you really, are you an entrepreneur if you don't feel the fear? Yeah, maybe as a second time founder, somebody's already done it again. Maybe. I think they also feel the fear, because it's a very natural emotion to feel. Also, I mean, we both of us have come from, not having these backgrounds. I don't come from I have no education in tech. Suraj has no education in marketing, in product. So we all come from these places where we don't have formal education in these fields. So there's definitely fear, but then that's how that's what makes you different as an entrepreneur. That's what differentiates you from somebody who's okay with doing a 9 to 5, right? You want to face those fears and you want to come to work every day and take that challenge, and figure out uh, how to solve that problem, right? And being an entrepreneur, starting up, running a company, is always about problem solving and nothing else.
Yeah, it is problem solving. And do you like take that problem solving into other areas of your life?
Sometimes, sometimes a bit much. It tends to come out in your personal life. It tends to come out in your relationships with
Hmm.
family. and sometimes detrimental to your own cause because the opposite person doesn't want you to problem solve all the time. So, yeah, maybe one advice is don't problem solve outside of work.
Yeah, so how has this affected? Like, do you also problem solve outside? And do you define, like, do you identify as a problem solver? That's the
Yeah,
right
I
word.
find that's an important meta skill to have today. Like, I will figure it out. Like, if you have that, I think you're already in the top percentile of people who can get shit done, which is super important. And I mean, coming back to the question of, are you scared? I think that's a good indicator to me that I'm aiming high enough. If I'm not feeling scared, am I even aiming high enough?
Then
So,
maybe you've plateaued.
yeah, then maybe I'll plateau. Yeah. So I remember at the beginning of this year, we were this whole company offsite, and we're like, we're going to double the company by the end of the year. And I was literally like, my palms are sweaty. I was like, who am I fooling? Like, it's taken us 4 years to get to this point. And now I'm saying that we're going to just double the whole thing in a year. And fast forward to today, we are pretty much on track. So it's one of those things that I feel like we just underestimate our capability, and like we need to shoot higher basically. Maybe next year I'll be like, we'll triple the company, and we don't know.
Wow. So do you keep shocking yourself?
Uh, I think it's probably just like pushing the envelope, like testing the limits, right? Like where do you like how far can you go, or are these limits just like self-imposed limitations?
Yeah. Limiting beliefs. Yeah. Like, so do you feel like we keep holding ourselves back and we can push more?
I think in most situations, yeah. And I think that doesn't just limit to work. I think in general, in life, we tend to be very protective about our environment, about our space. Um, but I also believe that at the same time, you, and I only say this because there are so many, I see so many people every day that want to start up, and especially in India, right? Because of the amount of the young population that you have that's very excited to start up. But it's also important to understand that it's not easy, and always aim high, but don't dream too big and end up going into a situation where you can't sustain it. So that is something that I do believe in. Achieve higher, aim higher. Don't dream too big. Don't think that okay, I'm just going to get that one check and my life is going to be made. Or yeah, I just need to build this business plan and a VC is going to invest in me. It takes a lot more than that.
One check doesn't cut it.
One check doesn't cut it.
More people should hear one check doesn't cut it. Okay. Okay. I'm actually quite intrigued when you said that because there are so many people in India, everybody is so curious about this startup journey. Um, do you feel like people are just getting into it without any direction? Do you think people are getting into it because it's cool?
Yeah, the media has made it really sexy, right? I mean, everyone wants to be that founder. Everybody wants to be in the newspaper. Everyone wants to be on some article on the news somewhere. Everyone wants to be really famous on Twitter. Um, Unfortunately, the media doesn't write about the journey, about the failure, about what it takes to get there. Also, I feel like it's made to sound like it's very easy to raise money, it's very easy to start up, it's very easy to build company, to build product. But in reality, it isn't, right? And we've gone through that journey together. The three of us have had our fair share of trying to pitch to investors, of being promised money and not getting it, uh, of having a whole period where we didn't know what to do because okay, how do we grow without money now? And that's what we were taught, right? We were taught that okay, you're going to get this money, you need this money to grow, and that's how you're going to build your business. But in reality, you can build a business without that as well. It's just that you got to be aware and you got to get into it with that awareness and that knowledge. And I'd say to a great level, be prepared to, if you want to build your business, be prepared to take what it takes to try to grow organically as well if you need to.
That's so interesting because I mean, it kind of humbles you also, right? Like when you didn't cut the check and you now have to pay salaries, you have to like figure out revenues. So, how did you all manage that? Did you all manage that?
I mean, we begged and borrowed.
I love it. I love it.
The stealing part was just left, but we just begged and borrowed. That is one of the
Yeah.
most humbling experiences. I mean, and that kind of like uh, helps me understand anxiety a little bit well, right? Like if you know someone's got your back even in the deepest, darkest times, it kind of helps you manage your mental health at that point, which was a important realization for me. But like just coming back to the point, you still need to be radically optimistic to see it succeed. So while the media glamorizes the startup, I think that's also required to to create those successful founders. So even if you do go in a little unaware, which is a good thing, because like if you knew exactly what you're getting through, probably half the people wouldn't go into it. That optimism, and I think combined with persistence of like, or that grit of not giving up, like I'm not failing at any cost this time, not this time. I'm gonna get through. That really helps you see through.
Wow. I'm already tired listening to them. I'm just like, do I have it in me? Like, am I cut for it? Wow. So it was a scary journey, and but you have each other's back, is what I understand. You know, you get a co-founder, you have each other's back. Um, is because we said right that one check and it doesn't cut it. So before we get into the milestones, can we first define what is success in a startup?
I think different founders measure success very differently. For a lot of people, it's just raising one check after the other, after the third, after the fourth, and eventually getting a big chunky acquisition or maybe a merger into a larger company. Uh, for me, success at a startup is about building value, about building a product that people use on a day-to-day basis. It's about not just creating value for yourself, but for all stakeholders. So that's even your team, right? It would be very disappointing to me if my team is building software, is building tools, is building features every day that people aren't using. So when I look at another academy, or we've come across now our customers advertising on Instagram, and we see our booking links, and nothing gives me more joy than that. And that is success for me. I mean, sure, the money is going to come, the money will come, the money has nowhere to go. But just looking at customers using your product gives me immense joy and makes me feel successful. In fact, I always say that if customers are complaining about bugs, yeah, sure. I mean, I am getting a little frustrated solving them day in and day out, but I at least know that people are using the product, right?
Oh my
If
God,
they weren't using it, they wouldn't be complaining.
that's such a positive way to look at it. And you literally said money last in the entire sentence. So where does money lie in this, in the success? So what is success right now?
I mean, I think success is like when you build something bigger than yourself, and which means like I don't personally know all our customers today, in which is quite cool. I mean, we have a great customer success team, uh, and let's not take away their credit. Yeah, I mean that's what it is, and like I said, I think along like we had these milestones, like we need 100 customers or we need 10,000 in revenue, and like you pass these milestones and then you're immediately tuned into the next one. So if there's a pattern out here, I think success is following those milestones and building onto them, feeling scared about the next milestone, like you said earlier, and yeah, I think that yeah, that's pretty much it for us, like for me at least.
And where does money lie in all of this?
Oh,
Like,
money is important. Money is very important. Like I keep telling people, just charge for your service. And if your product is riddled with bugs, it's not the perfect iteration, charge something. So as long as you're getting some money, people are putting the money where the money where the mouth is. Money. That's all you really need to be chasing.
and what's your relationship with money in this aspect?
So money is a motivator. It's not the goal for me, right? I mean, sure, you charge for your services and you must, because why should you undervalue yourself ever? But I'm not building this product or this startup or building any company for that matter to receive like a large check at the end of it. Sure, I would like a check,
But it's not only for
but
the
it's
check.
not. It's about, that's what gets me going every morning, right? I want to go because I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I want to go because uh, it's like how you get onto a roller coaster, right? You know it's scary. You know that it's going to be it's going to take you right to the top and then drop you to the bottom as well before bringing you back home. But you still go. Why do you go? Because you get that thrill, right? And that's why I do it. The money is going to come. I mean, all of us could have gotten jobs that pay us a lot more, but we still choose to do this. So
Yeah. Actually, let's talk about that. People who, start up and who are founders, they need to be very comfortable knowing that, okay, if I went out, I could have made more money. So being comfortable with that sacrifice, and can I call it sacrifice here at this point? Knowing that if I went out, I would have made more money, but now I'm not. Family knowing that, having your support system, we call it the emotional net. So having that support system, knowing that, you know what, if you went out, you would have made more money. We would have grown as a family faster. Your financial goals would have met faster. But just giving all that up and being like, you know what, I'm going to do this. Is that like people need to be mentally ready for that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you definitely need to be mentally ready for it. Uh, when it comes to like again, if money is your motivator, then you're probably not cut out for this. Like, yes, money is important, and you'll see people making a lot of money and exiting multiple startups. Uh, and there are ways to make money. Like, you'll figure it out in a job, you'll figure it out in a startup as well. So if money is your primary motivator and your end goal in life is to, have the retirement fund or start that family, then go do that. Like, it's awesome. Like, it's not, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, true. True. So yeah, I like the relationship with money angle here because a lot of people, especially when we were younger, we used to very like glamorize, oh, this one comes from a family business. They have a family business, and like khud ka dhanda was a very large aspect. And I think your family comes from like it's an entrepreneurial family. It's a family business. So these things are kind of glamorized, right? You think that there is money there, right? So the reality is very different, right?
So interesting that you bring that up, right? Because so we come from both of us come from family
Your family is
businesses.
doing a business as well.
Yeah, but I think it also gives you insight into knowing that it takes a lot of work to get there as well, right? Like I have seen my dad come home late at night traveling. So he was into manufacturing. He would travel miles to get to his factory and back. My brother, even today, when he has to go to his factory, it will travel almost 4 hours a day. And running a family business is entrepreneurship as well. You're just doing it at different scales. You're doing different things. They are in manufacturing, we are in software, but it's the same thing. We are both running a business, right? So sure, I mean, we've seen that money coming in, and at the same time we've seen all of the effort and hard work that they did put in and that they're putting in today as well. Also, I think building a business back then, there was a lot less competition. Sure, I'm not saying that they didn't have competition, but the number of people that had access to those kind of networks, to that kind of capital, to do what they did, was a lot lesser compared to today, right? Even if you just look at, and again, I'm only speaking about India, but even if you just look at the graph of the number of people that are now educating themselves, is a lot more. It's a steep curve, right? Given, of course, that our families were privileged enough to have had that education for generations, and then, of course, pass it down to us, also made a very big difference back then.
True. I mean, firstly, I didn't know that you came from a business family. So, also, like, does the entrepreneurship also come from what you've seen?
I mean, yes and no. Like, it kind of like I was like, obviously, growing up, your dad's your superhero. You want to be like your dad. And my dad went to an office and did business. That's all I knew. And I was like, I want to have a business one day. And as you kind of like understand the family business and you unfold it, you're like, maybe I don't want to be in this business. Yeah, so that was my story. And then I coming back to the point of internet based businesses, I was like, there's literally no barrier. Like, I don't need to be educated formally. I don't need capital. I just need skills that I can hone on the way. And that's why I was so fascinated and And it's almost permissionless, right? You don't need permission to start an internet business from your parents or anyone. As long as you have the drive, you can just start.
That is so beautiful. That's amazing. I didn't even think of that. Should I go and start a business or what tonight?
Just,
Should I like start like
get us as partners.
But you're already an entrepreneur.
yeah, I am.
So,
I am an entrepreneur.
yeah.
You know what? Yeah, why don't you clear this doubt for me? Because sometimes I call myself a freelancer. I think it just makes it easier.
But a freelancer is an entrepreneur too.
Yeah. So I call myself a freelancer. I think I'm just doing it because I'm like, I feel like entrepreneur is a very big word and I have to show up for that and I have to like keep that because entrepreneurs are pretty cool, yeah. So I'm just like, I don't want to work every day because I think y'all work like 8 days a week. I want to work 4 days a week or 5 days a week, and that's why I feel like I call myself a
That's our
freelancer.
dream.
Okay, so does it go from like entrepreneur to freelancer? Like
In
the
ideal-
life.
In the ideal world.
Oh God. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so we covered the relationship with money. So, you know what? Even this, khud ka business, family business and all. Do parents understand what we're doing? Do parents understand like what, what you guys are doing like as co-founders? Because I feel like I'm constantly struggling to explain where I am exactly in my financial journey with the business that I'm doing to my parents. So, do your parents understand?
So I had a very interesting journey over here, right? Because my dad wanted me to be in finance. That's one of the major reasons why I studied CFA. And I kept procrastinating, right? So I did a finance job for, I don't know how many months before I finally got frustrated. And I kept procrastinating. He tried getting me a job through friends. He knew if I wanted a job, I would have figured it out on my own. But I just didn't. And he sensed somewhere that something's going on. So he sat me down one day and he said, okay, what's going on? And by then I was already working with Suraj on Report Card, but in a very, I'd say, secure way. Like I was not doing it full time back then. And I sat down with him and I said, you know what? I'm taking up this job just for you because you wanted me to be in finance, but that's not where I want to be. That's not what I want to do. And he said, okay, so what is it? And I said, well, I've always wanted to be in tech. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I've always wanted to start something. And I'm really enjoying doing what I'm doing right now. So why is it that I should be looking for a job? And I think that cut it for him. He's never questioned my decision about work ever since that day. He said, okay, fair enough. And it's not like I needed his permission, but somewhere, somehow, maybe I felt that, okay, I owed him something. But he did it right by saying, well, if you want to be on this journey, it's up to you.
So you think that now he understands your journey?
I don't think he understands what we do on a day-to-day basis.
Okay.
And I think that's just a generational problem, not
Yeah.
anything else. I have to still show him a lot of things on WhatsApp and email and everything. So he probably doesn't understand the product end to end. But yeah, he understands the entrepreneurial journey. He understands what it takes to do what we do. I mean, we didn't draw paychecks for a really long time. And no one ever said anything to us. So
That's amazing. What's your story?
I mean, I still don't think my parents understand what we do.
It's hard, right?
And I don't blame them because, like, they asked us, like, initially what we were doing, we had a different explanation. We pivoted, we had a different explanation. We pivoted again, we had a different explanation. So it's super hard for them to keep up with what we're trying to do. And I think, like, just having faith in your child is important, right? Like I don't think my parents questioned me on the integrity of what we were doing or what we're trying to achieve, and that freedom is priceless. Like, we took it for granted back then, but when I reflect on it, that freedom to just do what you want is highly appreciated. And I tell my dad that, like, I really appreciate you giving me the space to try this out and see it through.
Yeah, I think it's the intention that matters, right?
I mean, the money matters too.
True. But yeah, it's like, okay, they don't know what you're doing, but they're like, okay, I'm going to give you the space and I have full trust and faith in you to figure.
Yeah, and like probably the journey took a lot longer than anticipated, right? So just like, year one's done, there's no money, there's no progress. Year two's done, there's not much money, not much progress. Year three's done, not much money, not much. And then like slowly you're building, and then suddenly like something works, and you're like, okay, now I can comfortably explain to you what I'm doing. But like, I hope you understand it this time. And I don't think they fully understand, but the fact that they've allowed us that timeline to build something was amazing.
Yeah, that's so true, I think it's also kind of similar to where I am because, of course, I started like my mental health journey. I was like, okay, it was one on one. Then I did like these short form courses. Then I did a podcast for like literally like content to put what I believe out there. And then it became like podcasting. So now people are like, oh, are you a podcaster or are you a mental health coach? So, and I'm like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it's very interconnected. And not like our generation, like, my parents and their generation. So, yeah, it's been a little like every time I'm changing or adding new things, it's been a little bit hard. Um, but we've spoken about the pivoting aspect and all of that.
By the way, sorry to interrupt you, but that's pivoting over there, what you're doing right now.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, for me, it took a while to even understand that I'm pivoting, but it's even harder. So firstly, it takes me time, but now it's even harder to explain it to other people.
So this is how I explained to my dad, right? When we kept pivoting, as you say it, I actually just explained it to him in his own terms, right? So he comes from a textile background. Uh, I had obviously I knew exactly how their manufacturing business ran, but essentially they kept changing the fabric that they produced, right? And I said, okay, you build fabric A today, or you produce fabric A today. You realize this is not really working. People aren't buying it. You started manufacturing product B or fabric B. That's exactly what we are doing.
That makes yeah, that makes sense.
And also, you need to stay relevant, right? Like, if you're not podcasting, if you're not trying out different things, are you even like being a true thought leader that you want to be? So I think you're fine. You're doing the right things.
And they did it too. I mean, at one point in time, my family would manufacture, clothes for the old India, what old India used to wear. And eventually they realized, okay, everyone's shifting to shirts, handkerchiefs. They started manufacturing for that. So they did it too. I just don't think these words were used well enough back then.
Yeah, that's true. Everybody, and that's growth as well, right? You pivot and then you grow from there. But like as a founder, you know, as an entrepreneur, you put all your attention. And I think the reason why I'm saying it now is because it's also happening more fast. Like the pivots, as you said, to stay relevant, the pivots are happening faster than it did in our parents' generation. But like you put all your attention, all your ambition, or you believe in this concept so much, and then at some point you have to go to the complete opposite side and say, you know what, maybe this is a shit idea, maybe it doesn't work, but you also have to be so confident and sell it to everyone, but then go against all your anxieties and be on the other side and say, you know what, maybe this is not working, maybe this is shit, maybe I need to pivot. So, how do you deal with that? And I want to call it anxiety at this point. How do you all deal with that anxiety?
It's a good balance of confidence and agility. So, I mean, first of all, when you've got to sell your product or your business, you have to be confident at all points in time. If you're not confident enough in your own product, you're not really going to be able to sell anything. And we've gone into sales pitches meetings knowing that there's a bug on the software, but we've still delivered the pitch, right? I mean, there have been days where I know Suraj is in a meeting and I know what he's going to demo and I know it's going to break, and I'm sitting over there ready to fix it while he's in the demo, right? Because we'll fix it eventually, but he had to make the sale, otherwise how would we sustain? And at the same time, you have to be agile, because what are you building otherwise? I mean, if people aren't going to use your product and you're just going to be stuck with your own belief that what I'm doing is right every time, is not taking you anywhere. So you have to have the ability to scrap what you've built and then change it, build something else, rework how you've built it.
I'd also think that the being tuned in 24/7 is super important. Like, when you are tuned in 24/7, you are getting more information than anyone else in the market, and you can identify opportunities faster, better, and execute on them like quicker than anyone else. So for me, it's important that I'm not distracted by anything else. Like I only think about this. So anything outside my life is outside the business is more or less an autopilot, and I just like I'm constantly thinking about the product. I'm constantly thinking about customers, and nothing else.
So then when you do kind of go against what what you built or believed in, it feels okay because you're trying to improve on.
Yeah, I mean, you'll identify, I would say, opportunities rather than change of opinions, wherein you'll be like, I know the customer is struggling with this and they're not able to articulate it as well as I would like them to, but I see it and I feel it and I hear them, and let's go build that.
Yeah. So it's also having confidence, I don't know, in your future self that you're going to build it.
Oh yeah, that's an like that's what I said. You just need to have that confidence that you can figure out anything.
Problem solving.
Of course, problem solving. So, huh.
Sorry, I also, I mean, I think everything has become faster in this generation, right? Everything is shorter attention span. So why can't these decisions be? You've moved from watching long movies to now watching reels on Instagram and TikTok. So, I mean, if you've shortened your attention span there,
Yeah, that's true. I mean, back in the day when we were younger, when people would change jobs or change businesses, they never changed because they were finding the most relevant thing to do. They would change because they failed at what they did, or dhanda nahi chala, or the business didn't work. So that mentality is also there. Now, what will people say? Fear of judgment. So does that play a role here at any point? Like, what will people say?
sure, but just drown it out because people are going to say stuff anyway, right? Either it's going to come from concern, is going to come from jealousy, is going to come from uh, not being able to do what you're doing to a great extent. You have to drown it out. And at the end of the day, it's really what you feel in that moment is eventually what's going to end up happening. It's also a lot to do with what your family thinks and what your partner thinks if you're in a relationship as well.
The funny thing is that no one's actually talking about us. We think that people are talking about us, but no one's really talking about us. And I think one of the things that I had top of mind while building Classcard is we need to be the best kept secret, non-secret.
Ooh,
So,
explain that.
so like we want people to talk about our product, but almost as if they figured it out or they found us in a very serendipitous way, and that's how they kind of the word of mouth kind of plays out. So we wanted to be the secret that was not a secret. So people just would talk about us as if they found us out of nowhere and pass the word along. So we don't like we like to be subtle in our marketing, at least until now.
Yeah, like the t-shirts are saying it all. Okay, so no fear of judgment in that aspect, right? Like, what will people say? Log kya kahenge?
I mean that's there, but like I think you got to drown it out. That's one of.
Yeah. Um, do you worry if internally in your staff and your team, people say that? Like, people are worried of like, okay, what are y'all doing? Why are y'all pivoting? Do they get scared? Why are y'all changing this? Why are you changing that?
I think that's part of the culture that you build, right? At least we all, the three of us, take a very active role in making sure that each and every one of our team members feels like they're heard. Everyone should know what we're building and why we are building it. The purpose is very important. As far as they feel the purpose as well, uh, there should be no reason why anybody has any sort of fear. And I mean, it's very fair for any one of our team members to feel that fear, right? It's risky for them also if you think about it. They're working at a company which, uh, in today's world, is just surviving on organic growth. Uh, they could of course raise questions, but it's only about the culture. It's about making sure that whenever we are building something or whenever we are going out and getting a customer, if we are dealing with a difficult customer, It's about them knowing that there is a larger purpose into what we are doing, and everyone needs to feel heard, right? If you just shoot someone down, uh, no one's going to like it, and that's where questions will really come about, is when they can't voice out what they want to say. So sure, you don't have to do everything that your team members want you to do, but you can definitely make them feel heard. You can definitely explain to them why you're doing what you're doing, and good team members would value that. They would know that, okay, uh, I put across my point. I'm sure he knows where he's coming from. And I think that another very important aspect of this is there's really, really no harm in going and telling your team that you screwed up. So even if you made a decision that eventually went wrong, it's very, very important to actually own up and say, I made that mistake.
Yeah. I mean, even nowadays, with conscious parenting coming to the picture, that's the formula, that's the logic, right? You always, we don't want the parents to be on that pedestal anymore because children are constantly like, these are like godlike people, they can never make a mistake. The first mistake the parent makes, the child just leaves because you're just like, I thought you were it, you were all, you could never do anything wrong. So parents at a very young age now, they keep telling their children, sorry, I made a mistake, oops, my bad. So I think it's the same formula, right? Where y'all are like telling your team members, like, you know what, shit, my bad, I made a mistake.
Yeah. And I think there's a layer of transparency like we try to maintain. Like everyone is privy to like our financials to a certain degree. Who are the new customers we onboarded? How much are they paying us? Why did they come on board with us? If they left us, why did they leave us? So we do create that level of transparency. And what we're actually trying to do with that is just increase accountability. So when when there's so much transparency and everyone's accountable for their actions, you know that when the tides are low, like who's not wearing pants very easily. So it's that layer of accountability, and like I feel that too. Like there are weeks when I'm not performing my best. I'm like, I need to work for my team. They're doing like 100%. I need to be at least at 101%.
Yeah. That, yeah, that's so true. I like that. The transparency does bring in accountability. You spoke about culture, right? So, can we just explain to people what is culture, especially in a startup, and how does it form?
I think culture has a trickle down effect, right? Like initially you start off, you're the only one on your Slack channel, and then you add people, and realistically you can maintain like 4 to 6 maybe close, meaningful relationships at work, and then how you interact with them, the transparency you share with them, they kind of take that forward with their 4 to 5 people who they are managing. So for me, in terms of culture, it's one is obviously giving them that sense of purpose, like why you're coming into work, and like I said, just feeling challenged. You're not here to be comfortable. We are not family. We are a team. Like you are as good as your last, sale, or you're as good as your last performance. So it does sound harsh, but like good people want that environment where they can prove themselves time and again, and like smash goals and targets, and just like yearly kind of build on themselves and build their confidence. And like it's the same thing, like we say we want to 2x the company or 3x the company, and they're doing that at the personal level. And are we enabling them? If the answer is yes, then we're probably doing a good job with culture.
Hmm. Interesting, yeah.
So the aspects of culture that for me is beyond, of course, what we are doing at work in order to achieve our goals, timelines, targets, etc. I think it's very important for us to have a very respectful environment because, I mean, we've worked with people in the past, we've done jobs that didn't have good culture. You didn't want to show up to work the next morning, you don't like your boss. And, you know, you shouldn't want to not come to work just because of the fear of how people treat you or any sort of, I'd say, dirty politics that go on. So for me, building that aspect of the culture was very important, right? It was very important for me to know that my team members are fine if they made a mistake. So even today, if somebody messes up, it's fine. We're all there to support that one person, to help him to of course, fix what went wrong, and then debug later to say that, okay, this is what we could have done better. That said, of course, everything that Suraj says is very important to, make sure that we are hitting your targets every single day, and obviously being there with a purpose, right? And good people don't want to make those mistakes, and that's where you know that you've achieved good culture, right? Because they are actually feeling bad about what they did, and then being there for them to say that it's fine, you made this mistake, it's okay, let's fix it, everything is fixable, is what matters a lot. And also, interestingly, this is the different aspects that everyone brings to the table, right? This is where I think as co-founders coming together, you're bringing so many different perspectives to the table. And honestly, this is how we formed culture. So if it was just one founder being aggressive, that would have built bad culture. If it was just one founder being empathetic as I am, it would again build bad culture. And if it was just one founder being very target oriented, that would also build bad culture. But having a balance of everything, having a balance of that empathy, being target oriented, being realistic, and to a great extent being aggressive at times as well, because that's what the situation demands, is super important. And that is culture coming together for you.
That's you killed it, huh, with that answer. Lovely. Honestly, when you said like toxic workplace or whatever, it would have been a toxic workplace. A lot of people do hate their managers, let's say in their 9 to 5. And a lot of people do talk about bad culture. What what makes it a bad culture? I know what makes it a good culture, but what makes it a bad culture? Like, is it when people are too selfish or take credit, or what is a bad culture?
I think for me, it's like, are we enabling individual growth along with company growth? And the minute you see people struggling to grow as humans, that's when you know something's wrong, and they're probably not going to fit in, or like they need to find something where they're much better placed.
Your number one or number twos don't need to love you. Okay, that is something that people need to get out of their minds, right? They just need to have equal amount of respect for you and for their peers and for people that they're working with probably below them as well, like where you're number one, number two, number three, whatever hierarchy level you follow. Bad culture is when they're constantly living in fear, right? So that's something that I faced. Company that I joined, overhired erroneously, realized too late that they've overhired, and then they would just put unnecessary pressure on all of junior analysts, right? That's not how you treat employees. That's not how you treat team members. That's not how you build culture. Because you're living in fear of losing your job. It's making you so insecure. How do you expect to grow personally when you're constantly living in that insecurity, right? When you don't know, if you're being constantly told that, okay, you're not good enough, if you're constantly being tested, if you're constantly being forced to over deliver when you can't, right, is something that is bad culture.
Yeah, rightly said. This overhiring thing is a problem with bigger companies, but clearly not a problem with a startup, right?
No, it happens with startups as well.
Oh, really?
Startups
I
will
thought that it
overhire
comes
very
from
often.
limited money and limited, that's why.
I mean, like, there's always this correlation that the more people you have on board, the faster you'll grow, and it's really not that linear. So, like, if you add 100 people, you're not just going to go grow like 5x or 10x basis those new 100 people you've added. So it's a little more structured, a little more organized. Some people are able to do it, and kudos to them. But it's just one of the things that you need to be extremely intentional about when you hire someone. And I think as long as you, like I said, care personally about their growth, you would not just place them anywhere.
Yeah. So, when you said that, you're constantly living in fear in a bad culture, I have a lot of clients that come to me when okay, they've not like had a good work life, or their workspace is not the best, or their managers and bosses are not the best. Now, one aspect of mental health is also like, you should not worry about what people say, you should not, your validation needs to come from yourself. But that also feels so opposite when it comes to work, right? Because people are going to judge your performance, people are going to judge you. So how does like one like balance that, in that aspect of like, I don't care what anybody says, I'm living my life, I should be my own validation, but then you're just like, okay, I need to care what other people say at work. So that contrast, like how do you guys do it, especially, in the startup?
I have a slightly contrarian take on this, right? I think it's wrong if you just, don't believe, or if you're just looking for self validation. It's important to be cognizant of the fact that people are going to judge you, right? And people are going to say stuff, and people are probably judging you right now. Somewhere, somehow, there also needs to be some sort of a motivator for you to be better, right? As far as you are not constantly affected by it, and if it affects you, I mean, by all means, get help. But at the same time, that's just how life is. That's just how people are. That's just how society is, right? That's the fabric of society. So you need to be cognizant of the fact that this is happening. People are saying something about you, maybe, and you have to just eventually not don't be affected by it, but take it into.
Like you shouldn't be driven by that judgment. You should just know that it's there, and you can take that learning into your work culture.
I mean, also, if you're good at what you do, you want people to notice. So you're like, I know I'm the best at this. Like, give me a chance. Let me show myself and judge me all you want because I'm going to kick ass. And I mean, that confidence comes with time and identifying what you're effortlessly good at. But once you do identify your strengths, I think you can play it cleverly with your weaknesses and the opportunities available.
That is great. So the ones who are basically just scared of the judgment, they should just do better a little bit.
Or find something else.
That they're killing it at. Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's interesting. Would you encourage this journey that you guys have taken with other entrepreneurs, or people who are like freshers coming out of college?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. You need to be optimistic. Just dive in. It's a great journey. Like you will have your highs, lows, and you'll feel so many emotions and feelings, responsibilities, and the business gives you a lot more than you can take as well, and you can never give enough to it. So it's just one of those things. Like I would recommend it if your circumstances permitted. By all means, give it a shot.
What do you mean by circumstances? Well,
That's what I was going to say, right? I mean, it's a beautiful journey, but be aware and cognizant of the fact that it's not a journey that's going to give you the same pleasures of life that a 9 to 5 can give you. There are lots of ups and downs, so be prepared for that. But by all means, being an entrepreneur is a beautiful journey. It's a lifelong learning that you'll never forget. Uh, I think it teaches you so much more, right? It's not just about how to build a business. It taught me how to deal with people, how to deal with relationships. It puts you through so much in your personal life that you have to manage, and that's what matters at the end of the day, right? It's more the learning that you take out of it. So don't do entrepreneurship to be cool, be successful, be rich. Sure, I mean, always try to be rich because that's what everything is about these days. But I mean, go for the entrepreneurship journey more for the journey and less for the destination or the goal.
I mean, just to add to that, like even if you join a startup that's growing,
Yeah.
that's nothing less of an entrepreneur journey. So
Be employee 1, be employee 2, be employee 3. These guys are, the founding team is as much founders and as much entrepreneurs as we are. It's today, I don't think we would be where we are without all of our key people who've been there through every aspect of what we've built.
yeah, dude, I didn't even think of that. Like, what do you consider as the founding team?
Our first 10 employees.
Okay. And how many employees do you all have right now?
25.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a little nuts now. We need to ask for help.
Wow. Okay. So, when you said like, you have the support. It's also about like the support that comes from your partners and that comes from your parents. And is that financial support as well?
Yes, absolutely. It's financial, emotional. I mean, like your support system will believe in you on the days that you don't believe in yourself. And as long as you have that support system, you're probably in the right position to execute on this. So it's everything. And it's unfortunately you can't pay it back. You have to just pay it forward.
Oh my god, I love that. Yeah, you can't pay it back. So that's when you like help other entrepreneurs, where you now help your partner and help your parents or whoever was. Yeah.
And it's not just family or partners, right? It's also an entire support circle that you build around you, and that could be your friends, it could be fellow founders, it could be somebody who's struggling at the time as well. Somewhere somehow you need to build a support ecosystem around you. And yeah, well, I mean, we didn't draw paychecks for a long time, so it's definitely financial support as well.
Yeah. So before people get into it, they need to know that they need to have some form of financial backing, right? Or you can, because I know you said like even internet based businesses, you can come in without capital, but you might not be making revenue immediately. So I think being aware that you need to have some financial backing, is that true?
Start earlier in life.
As early as 16?
Yeah, I mean, you have lesser responsibilities, lesser need for money back then, right? uh, my my desires in life have only gone on increasingly as I've gone older, right? I want finer things in life as I grow older. When I was 16, I didn't give a damn about what car I drove or about what food I ate or where I ate that food. So start earlier, start younger. If you want to be an entrepreneur, don't wait. I mean, sure, do it whenever, but you have lesser responsibilities when you're younger. So why wait? Just do it if you have to do it.
I love that. What about you? You think like financial needs to be there?
I mean, it's one of those things you figure it out. Like you will hustle, you will find a laugh
Mm.
my life partner will pay for your bills. You will
Oh my
figure it
god.
out.
I can't wait for your partner to watch this episode just for this line.
So as long as you have the belief that you'll figure it out, you'll figure it out.
Maybe like now she'll know why you're really with her.
She'll
Oh,
figure it out.
If she hasn't already.
wow. Okay. So yeah, financial stability is there. Like people shouldn't go crazy starting something and then feeling bad that, they can't make it. So that it's important for them to have that lesson, to have some backing or find someone.
But I mean, as Suraj said earlier, right? If there weren't enough people doing that, if there weren't enough crazy people doing it, the world wouldn't be where it is today, right? So there are so many success stories as well where people came from nowhere, um, sat in garages, built whatnot. You look at Apple, look at Amazon. Uh, it's just that I fear sometimes that people are looking at the glamour and they don't actually desire to build something. So, you know, be cognizant of that fact. Don't go for the glamour, is all I say. Be an entrepreneur, start up, start young, start late, doesn't matter. Don't run after the glamour.
Makes sense. Okay, I have like two more questions. What's the biggest misunderstanding that people have when, they see an entrepreneur or, the life that you're living? What's the biggest misunderstanding?
It's probably easier.
Oh, okay. It's easier than it looks.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to undermine anyone working a 9 to 5 or running a business. I don't mean to do that. But I think the biggest misunderstanding today, especially, is that you need to raise capital to run successfully, and that is becoming increasingly untrue. There are better and more efficient ways to make money online and grow that in a non-linear fashion. So for me, I think that's the biggest misunderstanding today.
Yeah, I think just referencing Suraj's point again, right, where he said, it always looks easier from the outside, but in reality, it isn't. It may seem like we make our own timelines, but we aren't. Uh, Somewhere, somehow, everyone has a boss, and that's true about starting up as well. Even though the three of us stand very, at a flat hierarchical structure, we are each accountable to each other. We are each accountable to every single team member of ours.
I like that you specify that in the beginning of the podcast, so now I've understood it. So good. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we are each of us are accountable to each other, right? I mean, Suraj and Nitin are my bosses. Nitin is our, bosses for Suraj and me. That's just how it works. That's how we are as founders. And I am very, very. I mean, I agree with Suraj on the capital efficiency part, right? I think unfortunately we've been right in the middle of this era where businesses have been built in a very capital inefficient way, and the belief is that if I'm starting up, I have to raise capital. You don't, and you actually, if you can, I mean, please do it. I'm not saying you shouldn't raise capital. If you can, if you're in an industry that demands it, go after it, run after it. But know that you can build businesses without raising a whole lot of money and burning through all of it as well. Capital efficiency is important, and I think that's something that's vastly misunderstood in the entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, you can't just be dependent on the checks that come in. You need to survive with the revenue also. You need to have a revenue model. It needs to like survive, right?
That's the thing, right? Let me put it this way. So what's misunderstood is that starting up is all about formulas, right? That you need X amount of users or X amount of revenue to raise that one check, and then that one check has to take you through 18 months. Then you'll get your second check in the 19th month. That has to take you to X users or to X plus Y revenue, and then that's going to get you your next check. And then that's where you just get stuck in these formulas, right? And it becomes more a game of achieving that particular target just to get your next check to eventually find somebody who's now going to acquire you, or else you run out of money and no one's willing to fund you anymore.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. No one ready to fund you anymore. Sorry, I'm going to take like two more questions. Forgot about this. Is that a thing? Like I've heard so many startups like running away with money, like tanking, not paying their employees. What is that like? And how do you spot these people?
I mean, it could be anyone, and that's the risk of working at a startup. So I don't blame. I'm assuming that the intentions were good here,
Wow,
but
you
it's,
already given them the benefit of the doubt.
yeah, but like that's the risk, and I think everyone should be very, very well aware that if you're signing up for this, like that's an outcome.
And I mean, sure, there are crooks. I'm not saying that there aren't, but when a company fails, when a startup fails, it's somebody has to be blamed, right? And who's going to take that blame? It's going to be the founder. Sure, okay, he drew a salary, but he worked hard to draw a salary there, right? Somebody has to take the blame, and who's going to take it? So that, in fact, that's also part of the entrepreneurial journey, right? Be prepared to take the blame and be graceful about it.
And don't scam people.
Oh yeah, I mean, as I said, there are crooks. Just don't be a crook.
Yeah. Okay. Last one. What's your advice? What's your advice to people who are currently in this journey? What's your advice to people who aspire to be in this journey? And like the advice that they probably won't get from college or university.
I mean, just have high agency. Like when you take on something, like deliver it to its best capability. Just imagine like this is your last piece of work, and would you want to be remembered by that? And like whatever you do, whether it's a job or like you're getting onto an entrepreneurship journey, is just have that integrity and initiative, solve problems, look at things that people don't look at, come up with those observations and act on it. I think self starters and people who can get shit done, they're so rare today and highly, highly valuable.
Yeah. Last piece of advice to someone listening right now.
I think, as people say, do what you love, but don't necessarily have to, you don't have to run behind a particular industry. So doing what you love can just be problem solving, coming to the office every morning to build solutions, to build product, to build software. It doesn't have to be a software business, it could be anything, but do what you're doing with intention, right? Not just because you have to do something, you gotten out of college and so you had to do something, so you started a company. Do it with intention. Be accountable not just to yourself, but to everyone that you're working with, right? And know that whatever you're doing maybe doesn't feel like it's moving the needle today, but is eventually going to move the needle sometime down the line. Right? Have that level of confidence and that conviction that you're going to move the needle.
It's so important. Like, we do get a little scared, a little, there's imposter syndrome, there's a lot of things that come, judgments. And sometimes you're just like, I can't see. So there's this meme, that I've seen where this guy is like mining something and he's doing it forever and forever. And he's just one hit away from finding the diamond in a mine. Gold. They have to find the gold. And then there's the other guy who's constantly at it and then he finds it. So it's also like believing in the journey and, not giving up, I guess.
Yeah, persistence is key.
Persistence.
Yeah,
Nice.
but have a lot of fun, like this podcast. Thank you for this.
Yeah, come on, like have fun, okay? So tell them to like, follow, subscribe,
Like, follow, subscribe Classcard app
Like, follow, subscribe, Classcard,
and
and
decoding quirks.
and Decoding Quirks. We wouldn't be here without Decoding Quirks. And a big thank you to our lovely host who's had a wonderful journey herself. I don't have an elaborate introduction or outro for her, but she's amazing, as you can tell.
Thank you, guys. Like, follow, subscribe. We'll put the details. All right.
Yep.
Actually, you know what? Say, where can they find you?
You can find us everywhere. We are on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn.
Just don't give your house address.
LinkedIn would be relevant. So we're Classcard on LinkedIn. And yeah, you'll find a bunch of posts and updates from us out there. So just follow us. We're constantly looking for good people to join our team. So please do look out for any relevant job postings that might intrigue you.
we have good culture now. So
Okay. I'm glad that we got your sales pitch out of the way. But yeah, like, follow, subscribe. See you next time. Thank you, guys.
thanks. Bye.